Hello, beautiful people. Today is 23rd of May. My name is Sahil, and welcome to Newspaper Analysis. Friends, he is DeRay McKesson, who's a civil rights activist in USA. He says justice that is not rooted in equity, in social welfare, and in community is not justice at all. Now, friends, first of all, this idea can be compared with Mahatma Gandhi's idea of Sarv Sukhai or the idea by the Vinoda Bhave of Sarvodaya. Now, guys, when the justice is cornered to a specific elite section, it loses its relevance. And therefore, when we are talking about the constitutional rights of the masses, this particular thing is very much important. Friends, you can use this particular quote for your GS paper number 2 as well as for your essay. And now let's begin with today's newspaper analysis. Friends, this is the page number 1 of the Hindu newspaper, and the first news item we can see here is that RBI had made a cut into the repo rate. And on the same line, one editorial has also appeared into the paper, so we will discuss the entire issue holistically. Now, friends, here you can see that repeatedly RBI is cutting down its policy key rates, and this particular thing is an example of a cheap monetary policy. Under this particular light, we will analyze the key concepts here. Moreover, we will also analyze the present move. Now, friends, first of all, economic balance or economic well being is maintained by two types of policies. One is fiscal policy, and other is monetary policy. Now, friends, fiscal policy is the domain of government, and government primarily operates it. And this fiscal policy contains two elements: one, as how government will be receiving its income, and second, as how government will be making the expenditure. Now, friends, if you remember, we discussed the series on Atmanirbharta Abhiyan, where 20 lakh crore economic package was given. So, under this particular thing, government is carrying the expenditure, so this will be the component of the government's fiscal policy. However, as economic crises are worse, only fiscal policy will not help. So, we also need the help of the monetary policy. Now, monetary policy is essentially the domain of Reserve Bank of India. Now, guys, earlier only Reserve Bank of India used to operate monetary policy, but now, as Monetary Policy Committee has been introduced, both RBI and government collectively controls the monetary policy, because into the MPC, members of RBI as well as government both are there. But since the chairman of MPC is the Reserve Bank of India governor, we can still say that primarily monetary policy is the domain of RBI. Now, friends, please keep this thing in your mind. Now, moving forward, under monetary policy, two types of tools are there. First is called as a qualitative tool, and other is called as quantitative tools. So, guys, under the quantitative tool, there is liquidity adjustment facility. Now, this LAF contains two things. One is the repo rate, and other is the reverse repo rate. Now, repo rate means the rate at which Reserve Bank of India is lending the money to the banks. So, guys, it could be anything. For example, 5%, 6%. It is actually an interest rate. Whereas reverse repo rate is the rate at which banks are lending money to the Reserve Bank of India. Now, friends, whenever there will be economic slump, what Reserve Bank of India can do? It can reduce the repo rate or the rate at which it is giving money to the banks. Now, when banks will receive the cheap money, obviously they will be giving cheap loan to the people also. And by taking these loans, people can buy new car, they can start new business, they can buy new house, and in such a way money will be pumped back into the economy, and economy will start to function. Now, if you'll see here, then under monetary policy, there are two types of tools: qualitative and quantitative. But the most important is the quantitative and LAF, and within LAF, the repo rate. So, therefore, this repo rate is also called as benchmark policy rate. So, whenever the problem comes, government changes this repo rate, and here into this particular graph you can see that into the last months progressively RBI is cutting the policy rate in order to revive the economy. So, guys, the idea is very much simple. If there is a slump, RBI will reduce the repo rate, and therefore banks will get the cheap credit, and if banks will get the cheap credit, it will give cheap credit to people. People will use that credit, will start business, will buy something, and in that way the economic cycle will start. Just for the sake of concept, guys, if there will ever be inflation into an economy, then the reverse way the monetary policy will work. What Reserve Bank of India will do, it will increase the interest rate so that bank will have the expensive capital, and if bank is having expensive money, it will give loan to the people also at the higher interest rate, so that people will borrow less, and if they will borrow less, less money will go to the people, and less money they will be offering for the goods and services. So that way, both ways the monetary policy will function. Now, friends, if we analyze the present move of reducing the repo rate, then on face of it, the reform looks good, but exactly much impact will not be coming, because borrowers anyhow are not in capacity to take any loan, whatever the interest rates are, because there is no demand in economy. However, along with this repo rate, other reforms have also been carried by RBI, which are good. First is the extension on repayment moratorium. Now, guys, earlier 3 month relaxation was given to the people who had taken the loan, that for next 3 months they might not pay their installments. Now, this thing has been extended to next 3 more months. Now, friends, on this particular point, if we analyze the situation, then what will happen after the end of 6 months? Though principal will be paid off eventually, but the interest will also accumulate, and that interest had to be paid back immediately. So therefore, Reserve Bank of India had brought new reform, that is, such accumulated interest rate for the 6 month could also be converted into a loan, which could be repaid till the end of this financial year. So guys, this is a good move. However, the repayment of this particular loan should have been enhanced further even more, up to 12 more months. And after that, guys, the third reform or the other change has also been made, that is enhancement into the group exposure limit from 25% to 30%. Now, what does this mean? Now, suppose this is the bank and the capital of bank is 100 rupees, and here there is ABC group of companies. So guys, there is a limit up to which a bank can give loan to associated group of companies. So if this limit is 25%, then it means that out of its capital, only 25% money should be given to one similar group of company. Now, as it has been enhanced to 30%, it means that out of 100 rupees capital, 30 rupees capital could be given to one associated group of companies. Now, how this will help? Right now, friends, the corporates are under pressure and they need more money, but they might not get more money because they had already taken the limit up to 25% from a bank. So now, due to this enhanced limit, they could take more loan from the existing banks. So guys, these all reforms have been carried, and it is still time to see that how they will bring the change. So guys, this was comprehensive coverage on this particular thing, and now we'll move to the next. Now, friends, as the cyclone Ampan has made an impact, the Prime Minister had announced a grant of rupees 1000 crore for the West Bengal. Now, guys, in this particular context, this is not important as how much money is being given by the state or by the center, but we will see one particular topic, that is calamity of severe nature. Now, guys, whenever such kind of calamity happens, the state's government requests the center government that the center should declare the calamity as the national calamity, and such demands are now also being made with respect to the cyclone. Now, certain things we need to see. First of all, there is nothing such as national calamity. There are no provisions for this particular thing into the Disaster Management Act of 2005. However, there is one category which is called as calamity of severe nature. Now, if this status is given to any calamity, then what happens is that state government will become eligible to get the assistance from the National Disaster Response Fund, which is the fund of the central government. Now, friends, usually whenever there is a disaster or calamity, state has to use the money from the State Disaster Response Fund, which is a state's own fund. But if calamity of severe nature status is given, then the state government can get much more money from the NDRF. So, because of this particular thing, Odisha government had already made an appeal that the calamity of severe nature tag should be given to the cyclone Amphan. Now, there is no specific guideline as under which capacity this particular tag, that is calamity of severe nature, will be given. Therefore, states can only appeal the central government and the ultimate discretion is of the central government. Now, guys, talking about the NDRF and SDRF, then both of these funds are to be created as per the National Disaster Management Act. Now, guys, money for the NDRF comes from two sources. Number one is by the National Calamity Contingent Duty. Now, guys, this particular duty is imposed on certain products such as pan masala, chewing tobacco, cigarette, etc., and that proceed comes into NDRF. And secondly is by the budgetary allocations which government makes from time to time. Now, after that, if we talk about SDRF, then first of all, this fund has to be maintained by every state government, and money under this fund comes by a sharing mechanism, which is 75 is to 25 for the general category states and 90 is to 10 for the special category states. Now, guys, it means that 75% money will be given by the center and 25% money should be brought by the respective state. Now, one more thing, exactly what should be the contribution of the center and the state, that thing is decided by the finance commission. And now, guys, as the 15th finance commission is underway, there could be certain changes or the provisions can stay also. The final report of the 15th finance commission, however, will come in October. So, guys, this was the mechanism with respect to the funding. I think that the topic will erupt into the coming days, so please keep it into your mind. So, guys, this was all about this. Now we'll move to the next. Now, friends, a catastrophe had occurred in Pakistan where a plane with 98 passengers have crashed near Karachi and a large number of casualties have been noted here. The reason for the crash is stated to be the engine failure. However, guys, now the more underlining information will come once the black box is recovered. Now, guys, what exactly is black box? It is a kind of a device fitted into the plane which contains the crucial stats with respect to the plane. Guys, it also contains the recordings of the pilot and co-pilot and can give information such as altitude, speed, height, flap expansion and all that kind of thing. So whenever the plane crashes, the black box is searched and black box exactly reveals that where the fault was. And on the basis of revealings by the black box, certain precautionary guidelines are also issued for the aviation sector. So friends, please keep it into your mind with respect to your exam. And now we'll move to the next news. Now, friends, here you can see that India has reached to Pakistan in order to give a coordinated response to the locust attack. Friends, into the 21st of May, we had already discussed that what exactly locust attack is, and this particular year, locust happens to be an important topic because it is a biggest attack in last 26 years for India. So, guys, please make sure that you had seen that particular thing. Now, under the present news article, government of India had reached the Pakistan that coordinated response should be given to the locust because already South and Southwest Asia had suffered the crisis on agriculture due to restrictions imposed by COVID 19. Moreover, guys, the Afro Asian region has been particularly impacted. So, therefore, not only Pakistan but the countries such as Iran, etc., should also come together and should devise a holistic strategy into this particular regard. Now, guys, if you can recall, then we had already discussed a particular insecticide which is used to kill the locust, and the name of that insecticide is malathion. So, India had also offered to supply the malathion in order to contain the locust virus. So, guys, this could be an example of malathion diplomacy. Just for the sake of reference, if you want to use, you can use it. So, guys, this was all about this, and now we'll move to the next news item. Now, guys, here's a news item on page number 2 where the DU has responded that open book exam might not be viable into the present environment. Now, friends, first of all, on 15th of May, we had already discussed the open book examination and why it is desired. Just to brief, open book exam is a mechanism where children are allowed that they can refer to any source or book or material and can answer. So, open book examination is supposed to be a critical way of examining. We can see whether the analytical skills have been developed into a student or not. So that was much needed reform, and many a times it has been floated. So now committee on courses had said that the exams might not be possible because there are certain problems. So guys, these problems are, for example, there are the infrastructural constraints. University might not be having such a big portal on which such massive exam can be contained. Then there are the technological obstacles with to the student. They might not be having desired technological equipment to upload their copies. Then there could be the economic hardships for the student. Then there could be dislocation of students, and challenging household environments are there where they might not be easy to give the exam. So therefore, by conducting the open book examination at a such short notice is not feasible. So guys, this particular thing could also act as the criticism of open book exam. Moreover, guys, now it is being said that it is not feasible to conduct the exam. Then the numbers should be given to the student on the basis of their average into the previous semesters. However, this is a temporary mechanism, and into the long term, certain out of the mechanisms are much needed. Friends, we had already discussed it. As I told you, if you want, you can refer to this. And now we'll move to the next news. Now, friends, we are into the editorial section, and here we have clubbed two editorials which are talking about the relations between India and Nepal into the aftermath of present crisis of Kalapani. Now, into the earlier videos, we have seen that exactly what was the Treaty of Sugoli. Then, after the Treaty of Sugoli, the boundary was fixed between the India and the Nepal. Then we had seen that the in 2019 government of India issued new maps of J&K, after which the Kala Pani issue started to begin. Then recently in 2020, into the month of May, government started the new Kailash Mansarovar route, after which the Nepal became angry. And just 2 days back, the Nepal has unveiled a new map under which the Kala Pani, Limpia Dhara, as well as Lipu Lake has been shown as the part of the Nepalese territory. So already in last 2 3 videos we have seen all these issues. However, today we will see certain issues with respect to the background of the Sugoli Treaty and the giveaways into the present times. Now, friends, there has been the long history of boundary between India and Nepal, and before the 1816, Nepal had a very huge territory, and the territories from the Satluj River into the west up to the Tista River into the east. This entire stretch belonged to the Nepal. However, between Nepal and the Britishers, the Anglo Nepalese War was held, and in this war, the Britishers won. And therefore, as the part of the agreement in 1816, the Treaty of Sugoli was signed. And here, the Raja of Nepal gave the territories between the Kali River and Rapti River to the East India Company, and the lowland areas were also given by the Nepal to the East India Company. Therefore, guys, as the part of this agreement, the Lipu Lake Pass was also came into the domain of East India Company, and this particular pass was being used for the trade with the Tibet region. Moreover, guys, since 1870, Survey of India is showing Lipu Lake Pass as the part of Indian territory. Moreover, the Rana rulers of Nepal and other such dynasties never show a concern with respect to inclusion of Lipu Lake Pass in India. Now, one point is to be noted that what India became was an inheritance which was received by the from the Britishers in 1947. So, all the boundary agreements which have been made by the Britishers, they also became the part of India. So, guys, there was nothing which was signed between India and Nepal, but it was signed between the British and Nepal, and there was even no discrepancy with respect to the entire arrangement. However, in 1981, a kind of a venture between India and Nepal began with respect to the demarcation of entire boundary, and still 2007, 98% of the region was surveyed, strip maps were prepared. However, one particular region, that is the region of Kala Pani, fell into the controversy. Now, friends, as the part of the Treaty of Sugoli, the Kali River was fixed as the boundary between the India and Nepal. It was said the territories towards the west side will belong to the Nepal. Now, guys, Nepal says that the Mahakali is not the Kali River, because then the Kala Pani will go to India. Rather, they say that some other is the Kali River, so that Kala Pani can come into the Nepal's territory. Now, Kala Pani is a very strategic point, because from here the sight over the Chinese movement in Tibet can be kept. Now, the thing is that the existing mechanism, that is recognition of Mahakali as the Kali River, was being accepted before the independence and nobody objected. However, just for the sake of cordial relations, we had even started in 1981 Nepal India Technical Level Joint Boundary Working Group, which I had told you is working on to the delineation of the boundary. However, guys, still Kala Pani and one other region Susta is claimed by Nepal, and now Nepal had taken the India as well as neighbors by surprise when it included not only Kala Pani but also Limpiadhura as well as Lipu Lake into their own territory. Now, here Nepal says that their action was in retaliation because recently India had constructed a road from Dharchula to Lipu Lake. But guys, this is nothing new, because in 1981 China allowed to access the Mount Kailash, and to access this Mount Kailash, Lipu Lake Pass was to be used. And since 1981, the people are going to the Kailash Mansarovar via this route only. What has happened now is that this road has been converted into a metalled road, so that journey time of the people get reduced and the yatra could be made much more convenient. So basically, there is no logical ground for such retaliation. Rather, this is an attempt by the Nepal to hide the incompetencies of their own government, as the basic needs of the people are not getting fulfilled and the government had failed on its genuine promises. Therefore, such type of issue might have been cooked up. However, given the fragile circumstances brought by the present pandemic, it is not advisable that such type of things should be flared up. Moreover, given the track record of India and Nepal, such type of things could be resolved very much amicably, because India had always been a big brother to Nepal with respect to the porous boundary, with respect to giving the employment opportunities to the Nepalese people in India, and all those such type of things. Moreover, if we talk about the boundary, then it is nothing complicated, because India had solved much more complex boundary agreements. For example, the boundary agreement between the India and Bangladesh. And to do this, India also introduced 100th Constitutional Amendment Act. And seeing the Bangladesh example, though this was a land dispute, India also successfully solved the water dispute onto the Tista River with the Bangladesh. So this is a testimonial that the boundary disputes could be solved amicably if desired. So guys, such a dispute with the Nepal could also be solved by the diplomatic channels. And in this particular direction, in 2014, the joint foreign secretary level task was assigned by the Prime Minister of India to solve this boundary dispute. But this is an unfortunate incident that nothing concrete had came out of this particular thing. Now, friends, as we are analyzing this particular issue, there have been certain shortcomings also into the India's response, because when Nepal earlier raised its objections and problems to India with respect to boundary, India did much to assuage the fears of Nepal and just dragged off that issue that something will be done. So right now it is high time that such type of things should be resolved by the diplomatic levels. Moreover, guys, when we see the history with the Nepal, then Nepal and India have been just like the brothers and shares the relation of roti beti, which means the relation which has been tied by the way of food and marriages. Moreover, Prime Minister Nehru had also praised Nepal and had mentioned it as a truly independent country in his book Discovery of India. Moreover, guys, the ties are not only strong at the level of diplomatic as well as ministerial level, but people to people ties are very much strong. Therefore, a mature response is needed at the urgent basis. So, guys, this was all about this article, and now we'll move to the next. Now, friends, here's an article which discusses about the digital currency or the cryptocurrency that has been issued by China. Now, before going into the article, we will understand certain key concept. First of all, cryptocurrency. Now, friends, the cryptocurrencies came in boom after Bitcoin, and many a times cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are used synonymously also. Now, first of all, these kind of currencies are issued or mined from a cryptographic program, and the entire record of these currencies is maintained into a digital ledger. So, guys, every coin of a cryptocurrencies which has been issued, divided, given, it all the record will be maintained here. You can also call cryptocurrency as the virtual currency because these currencies are not stored into the physical form. So, guys, when you talk about the money that is lying into your bank account or into your Paytm account, that money is not the cryptocurrency or the digital currency, because at the end of the day, there is a physical backing also. You can go to the ATM, can withdraw the money, or can transfer that money into the bank and then can withdraw this thing. But cryptocurrencies don't have such type of thing. Now, if we take the example of Bitcoin, so guys, there is a Bitcoin stash or Bitcoin cube in which already certain million Bitcoins have been stored, and as you will solve the complex programs and equations, certain Bitcoins as a reward will be given to the people, and those coins can then be distributed to others, and their entry is made into the blockchain, which is a kind of a digital record. So into the concept of cryptocurrencies, there are two things. One is blockchain, which is a record, and second is the currency itself. Now, guys, since the concept of cryptocurrency came, these have not been seen into very much positive lines, and large number of countries have either banned them or have not framed any rules with respect to the cryptocurrency. But China is moving very much aggressively in this particular regard and had decided to implement their fintech development plan, which is a plan to bring the own cryptocurrency of China, which is popularly known as DCEP, that is Digital Currency Electronic Payment. Now, guys, this particular currency is peculiar because it is a type of a fiat currency. It means that it is being issued by an authority, and that authority is People's Bank of China, that is Central Bank of China. Now, earlier, as a pilot project, China introduced such currency into the city of Beijing. However, now it had expanded, and Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hangzhou, Shuzhou, all these cities are now covered, and slowly, the entire country will be put into the fold of the digital currency. Now, friends, this thing is something new because historically the countries have been shied on going forward with respect to the cryptocurrencies. But China has done this thing which is very much courageous. However, going by the trend, if we see, then the Bank for International Settlement, which is situated at Basel, had conducted various surveys, and now even more countries are coming forward to experiment with the currencies. And according to BIS, right now more than 25% banks are willing to experiment with the cryptocurrencies which are backed by the central authority. Now, friends, as we are talking about cryptocurrency of China, then there are two bodies which you should keep in your mind. First is the People's Bank of China, which is the central bank which had announced the cryptocurrency, and second is the BSN. It stands for the Blockchain Service Network, and this is actually the agency which will be managing the blockchain or the record of the cryptocurrency. Now this BSN will be starting a distributed ledger technology, and this distributed ledger technology is such nothing but a kind of a shared database where all the parties who are making transactions with respect to this digital currency will be registered and can be seen on to the real time basis. Now, friends, if we go little bit away from the article of the Hindu newspaper, then recently China introduced the Chinese standards of 2035, and this plan is very much ambitious as it outlines that how the next generation of technology will be coming in China, which will include telecommunication, artificial intelligence, and there is also focus onto the digital currencies. So such type of move is coming out. Now, guys, a question comes that what could be the advantages of such a digital currency? First of all, if such a digital currency comes into the mainstream, then it will completely wipe out the physical currency, and due to this thing, huge cost saving will be there onto the amount of printing and circulating that currency, and 1 to 2% of GDP could be saved into this particular thing. Secondly, this currency, as it will be recorded into the DLT, therefore the tracking of such currency will become very much easy, and tax evasion, hawala, all these kind of things will also stop. After that, this the movement of this money will be very much fast, and therefore the direct benefit transfer will be very much easy. And then fourth, the seamless transfer of money across borders will become very much frictionless and will be very much efficient. Now, guys, there are certain challenges also into this particular regard. Number one, Chinese move is aimed toward the USA's domination in cryptocurrency, as recently the Facebook announced the Libra, which is setting to become the digital currency of the future. So, guys, the move might not be equipped towards the domestic gains but might be a response towards the USA also. Secondly, by enhancing the DCEP, there could be a possibility that China might overpower the world in terms of currency circulation, and then there could be the hegemony of China, as right now USA is enjoying the hegemony by its dollar. So, guys, it is nothing but a rise of new hegemon. However, moving ahead, if we talk about India in all this particular scenario, then friends, earlier Reserve Bank of India was very much clear and critical of the bitcoins and had denied it. But recently Reserve Bank of India had allowed the bitcoins in India, and this could be a step that India might also move into the direction of cryptocurrency. However, starting own cryptocurrency is right now not onto the table, so we need to see as how India will respond. But more than the Bitcoin, India had welcomed the blockchain technology and has even started the use of blockchain for the land records. And guys, Andhra Pradesh is the state which is managing land records by blockchain. Friends, this might not look weird because blockchain is nothing but a type of a record management system, and this record management system is very much effective into the land where there are many a times disputes due to the forged papers and all that kind of thing. Now, friends, please don't go much deeper than this, and this was all about this. Now we'll move to the next article. Now, friends, here's a news item on page number 10 where the visa and travel restriction has been relaxed for the OCI citizens. Now, guys, what are these OCI? First of all, under Article number 11 of the Constitution, Parliament has been given the authority that it can frame any law with respect to the citizenship. So, guys, in this particular respect, in 2005, Citizenship Amendment Act was brought, and under the Citizenship Amendment Act, overseas citizen of India were introduced. Now, guys, OCI is a kind of a scheme. under which the people who are of Indian origin but they are living in some other country and have gained their citizenship. Now, these people will be given the OCI card, and on the basis of this card, certain benefits are given to them. So, guys, basically, there was a demand for double citizenship for the people who are living in some other country and have gained their citizenship. So, for that particular thing, OCI has been introduced. Now, guys, there was earlier OCI and there was one more scheme, that is PIO, means people of Indian origin. Now, guys, now PIO is not there and it has been merged into the OCI. So, right now, OCI only happens to be there. Now, guys, what are the benefits which are given to the OCI scheme holders? Now, guys, OCI scheme holders are given the facilities such as lifelong visa, exemption from registration with FRRO, Foreign Regional Registration Office. Now, guys, this means that people who had came in India onto the visa, they need to register to the FRRO after some specific time. Now, they are not needed to register there. Then there are other facilities such as with NRIs, all economic, financial, and educational facilities are given to them. But these OCI, what they can't do, they can't buy the agricultural properties, political and public employment they can't hold. So they can't hold public employment, political employment, and they can't purchase the agricultural property. Now, guys, NRI are different from the OCI because NRI are still the Indian citizens, whereas OCI are not the full-fledged citizens of India because they have uh, taken some other country's citizenship. So, guys, please remember these kind of details here. Now, we'll move to the next. Now, friends, Oxford trial is in news. Now, what is this? Friends, 2 days back we had discussed that the Serum Institute and the University of Oxford, they are trying a particular vaccine which might be the cure for the present pandemic. Now, guys, what exactly this vaccine is will revise. So basically, this vaccine will be known as Chadox 1, and this particular vaccine contains adenovirus, which is the virus which causes the common cold into the chimpanzees. And this particular virus contains the material which makes the spike proteins into the coronavirus. And so, if we administer this kind of gene to a person, then his immune system will be ready to fight with the invasion of virus if it's at some time it enters into the body. So now it has been said that there are 80% success chances of this particular vaccine, that is Chadox 1. And now, in this particular respect, Serum Institute, which is based in India, will be playing a major role into the mass production of this particular vaccine. So, guys, please remember only these things. Don't go in more than this into this particular article. Now, guys, here's a news or international page where the USA is announcing that they will exit the Open Sky Treaty. Now, guys, first of all, I will make this particular thing very much clear that this is different from the Open Sky policy. Now, guys, Open Sky policy is with respect to the aviation sector, where the countries which are signing this Open Sky policy will make their sky available to each other's commercial flight. It means that the airports of one country are open to the flights for the other countries. How many flights one country want to operate from other country can do that thing. However, Open Sky Treaty is a little bit different. Now, friends, OST was signed in 1992 and came in force in 2002. Now, under this particular thing, the participants will allow unarmed aerial surveillance flights over each other's territories. So there are, guys, threats that Russia might be doing some nuclear activity. So USA will fly a flight over Russia and will see whether something illegal they are not doing. So in this particular respect, the each other's trust is gained and suspicions are resolved. So right now there are 34 people who are actively following the Open Sky Treaty. Now, guys, if we see the numbers, then USA and Russia, USA has used more extensively the Open Sky treaty onto the Russia and had operated far more flights over Russia. But now they are saying that this is not good for their interest and they are going out of the open sky treaty. Now, exactly what are the real purposes? That thing is not known. Now, guys, the withdrawal of USA from the Open Sky Treaty is very much crucial because one by one USA has withdrawn from large number of treaties. And guys, just within a month, New START treaty is going to be expired and it needs to be signed again. Now, New START policy is a policy which l- puts a limit onto the USA and the Russia that they need to reduce their stockpile of weapon. Now, USA might not be joining New Start also because according to Russia, their arms industry is getting impacted by this particular step. Moreover, USA has one more reason. According to USA, as China is not the part of treaty, then anyhow it is not making any sense because China also happens to be a very big procurer as well as a storer of the arsenal. So guys, there is a lot of uncertainty going on right now. However, once the date of New Start policy comes near, we will again be coming back on this particular issue. Now, guys, there is one more news item onto the business page. Here, the finance minister had asked the banks that they should slash down the lending rates as recently the Reserve Bank of India had reduced their repo rate. Today only we had seen this thing. Now, guys, there is a particular terminology which can be used here, that is monetary policy transmission. Now, guys, whenever Reserve Bank will reduce or increase the repo rate, therefore a kind of a change into the monetary policy is being carried. Now, guys, if the banks do certain action by which the result goes down to the people, then we can say that monetary policy transmission is occurring, otherwise not. Now, guys, what happens when the Reserve Bank of India reduces the repo rate? Then banks don't reduce their repo rate and doesn't passes the benefit to the consumer, due to which there is a non-transmission of monetary policy. And this kind of tendency is bad. Therefore, finance minister has asked the banks that they should make sure that there should be adequate transmission of monetary policy. So, guys, this was about this particular article. The concept of monetary policy transmission is very much important. So, guys, this was all about this. I hope you are liking our discussion. Thank you so much.